What happens when one of Hollywood's most composed and diplomatic stars finally hits his breaking point? Live on national television. What you're about to see is the moment Jason Bateman completely lost his cool during what was supposed to be a routine promotional interview on The View. This wasn't your average celebrity outburst. It was a measured, calculated takedown that left the entire studio in stunned silence. Before we roll the footage, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tell us in the comments what you think really pushed Jason over the edge. It all began like any other Tuesday morning on The View. Jason Bateman was there to promote his latest Netflix project, Calm, Professional, and armed with that trademark dry wit that's made him a talk show favorite. Jason, welcome back to The View, Whoopi Goldberg said warmly as the cameras went live. Always a pleasure to have you here. Thanks for having me, Whoopi, Jason replied with his easy confidence. Great to be back. The first few minutes went exactly as planned. Safe questions about his new show, some behind-the-scenes stories, the kind of light chatter that both the hosts and Jason could do in their sleep. Sarah Haynes asked about the cast. Alyssa Farah Griffin asked about filming locations. Even Sunny Hostin joined in to talk about the show's themes. Then Joy Behar leaned forward. Jason, I have to ask, she began, her tone sharpening in that unmistakable Joy Behar way. Your show deals with some pretty heavy political themes. I'm curious, what about your own politics? Are you one of those Hollywood liberals, or do you lean more conservative? The air in the studio shifted instantly. The question landed like a grenade. Jason's smile faltered, just for a moment. Well, Joy, he began carefully, his years of media training on full display. I try to keep my personal politics separate from my work. I think audiences appreciate when actors don't lecture them about how to think or vote. Joy smirked. Oh, come on, that's such a cop-out. Everyone in Hollywood has opinions. You can't tell me you don't have thoughts about what's going on in this country. Of course I do, Jason replied evenly. I just don't think it's my job as an entertainer to impose those views on others. Joy let out a sharp laugh. So you think you're better than the rest of us who actually care enough to speak up? That's convenient, don't you think? The other hosts exchanged nervous glances. Whoopi cleared her throat, clearly trying to steer things back on track. Let's talk about the show itself, she said. Jason, can you tell us about the character development process? But Joy wasn't letting go. No, wait, she interrupted, raising her hand. I think this is important. Are you saying celebrities should just shut up and entertain? Because that sounds awfully familiar. Jason's jaw tightened, but he stayed composed. I'm saying I respect my audience enough to let them form their own opinions, he said slowly. That's not silence. That's respect. Respect? Joy shot back, voice rising. Or cowardice. When democracy's under attack and people's rights are being stripped away, silence is complicity. The studio fell silent. Even the production crew had stopped moving. I never said I was silent, Jason replied, his voice now low but firm. I said I don't use my platform to lecture people. There's a difference. Joy leaned back with a smirk. Is there, though? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're happy to take Netflix's paycheck, but not take a stand on anything that matters. That's when something changed in Jason's face. The calm, polished exterior cracked. His hands tightened on the chair arms. Joy, he said quietly, the composure finally thinning. I think you're making a lot of assumptions about someone you don't know. Am I? She snapped back. Because I've been doing this a long time. Jason, and I can usually tell when someone's hiding behind neutrality just to keep their conservative fans happy. The moment hung heavy in the air. One of those rare, raw instances where Hollywood polish gives way to something much more real. The accusation lingered in the air like smoke from a fired gun. Jason gazed at Joy for a long moment, and for the first time since he'd sat down, his carefully composed facade began to fracture. That's quite an accusation, he said slowly. Are you saying that my desire not to alienate half the country makes me some kind of sellout? I'm saying, Joy replied, a sharp smile on her lips, that when good people stay silent, bad things happen. And maybe your silence isn't as noble as you think. The silence that followed her words was deafening. Jason sat utterly still for what felt like an eternity, though it was probably only 3 or 4 seconds. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed, lower, more controlled, as if he were wrestling with something far deeper underneath. "Joy," he said, and even his use of her name carried weight. "I think you've crossed a line here." "Have I?" Joy raised her eyebrows in mock surprise. "Because someone with your platform. Maybe you should use it for something more meaningful than promoting streaming shows." "No," Jason replied, leaning in slightly. "Don't presume to know what kind of person I am based on a 5-minute conversation about a television show." The other hosts were visibly uncomfortable now. Sarah Haynes fiddled with her cards. Sunny Hostin kept glancing between Jason and Joy like she was watching a tennis match. And Whoopi, trying to maintain control of the moment, looked like someone determining how to defuse a bomb. "Look, Jason," Whoopi began hesitantly. "No, let him finish," Joy interrupted, waving Whoopi aside. "I want to hear what Jason has to say about using platforms responsibly." Jason laughed, a sound unlike anything anyone had heard from him before. Not his usual warm chuckle or dry comedic timing. This was something else entirely. "Platforms," he repeated slowly. "You want to talk about using platforms responsibly, Joy?" "That's exactly what I want to discuss," she said, arms crossed, settling in for a long debate. "Okay," Jason said, and something in his tone stiffened the air in the studio. "Let's talk about platforms. You've had a platform on this show for how many years now?" 25, Joy answered proudly. 25 years, Jason repeated. "And in those 25 years, how many times have you used that platform to attack guests who came here in good faith to promote their work?" Joy's confident expression wavered slightly. "I don't attack guests. I ask tough questions." "Tough questions." Jason nodded slowly. "Is that what you call accusing someone of being a coward and a sellout because they won't perform their political beliefs for your entertainment?" "Now wait just a minute," Joy started. "No, you wait a minute," Jason cut her off, his face for the first time showing genuine anger. "You want to talk about responsibility? Let's talk about the responsibility that comes with sitting behind that desk for 25 years and treating people like punching bags for your personal political agenda." The studio was so quiet that the hum of the air conditioning could be heard. One camera zoomed in on Jason's face, capturing every micro-expression as he continued. "You know what I find interesting, Joy? You talk about courage and taking stands, but what exactly is courageous about attacking someone who can't really fight back without looking like the bad guy?" "I'm not attacking you," Joy protested, but her voice had lost some of its earlier certainty. "No," Jason said, eyebrows rising. "So, calling me a coward, suggesting I'm hiding behind fake neutrality, implying I'm complicit in the downfall of democracy, that's not attacking. That's just what you call friendly conversation?" Joy opened her mouth to reply, but Jason wasn't done. "Here's what I think is really happening, Joy. I think you're so used to guests either agreeing with everything you say or staying silent that you've forgotten how to have an actual conversation with someone who doesn't immediately validate your worldview." "That's ridiculous," Joy snapped, but defensively now. The accusation hung in the air like smoke from a fired gun. Jason stared at Joy for a long, tense moment, and for the first time since taking his seat, the cracks began to show in his calm, polished composure. "That's quite an accusation," he said slowly, his voice measured but tight. "Are you saying that my choice not to alienate half the country somehow makes me a sellout?" "I'm saying," Joy replied, her sharp smile unwavering, "that when good people stay silent, bad things happen. And maybe, just maybe, your silence isn't as noble as you think it is." The silence that followed was deafening. Jason didn't move. For a few seconds that felt much longer, the entire studio held its breath. When he finally spoke again, his tone was different. Lower, heavier, controlled in a way that suggested he was holding something back. "Joy," he said, and even the way he spoke her name carried weight. "I think you've crossed a line, have I?" Joy shot back, arching her brows in exaggerated surprise. "Because I'm just suggesting that maybe someone with your platform could use it for something a little more meaningful than plugging Netflix shows." "No," Jason replied, leaning forward slightly, his voice sharpening. You crossed the line the moment you presumed to know what kind of person I am, based on a 5-minute conversation about a television show. The tension at the table was palpable. Sarah Haynes fidgeted nervously with her note cards. Sunny Hostin's eyes darted back and forth between them like she was watching a match-point rally. Whoopi, meanwhile, wore the expression of someone trying to decide which wire to cut to stop a ticking bomb. "Look, Jason," Whoopi began carefully, "maybe we should—" "No, let him finish," Joy cut in, waving Whoopi off. "I want to hear what Jason has to say about using platforms responsibly." Jason laughed, but it wasn't his usual warm or self-deprecating laugh. It was quiet, clipped, and unsettlingly deliberate. "Platforms," he repeated slowly. "You want to talk about using platforms responsibly, Joy?" "That's exactly what I want to talk about," Joy replied, crossing her arms and leaning back in her chair like she was settling in for a long debate. "All right," Jason said, and something in his tone made the whole room tense. "Let's talk about platforms. You've had one on this show for how many years now?" 25, Joy said proudly. 25 years, Jason echoed. "And in those 25 years, how many times have you used that platform to attack guests who came here in good faith to promote their work?" Joy's confident smile faltered just slightly. "I don't attack guests," she said defensively. "I ask tough questions." "Tough questions?" Jason nodded slowly. "Is that what you call accusing someone of being a coward or a sellout because they won't perform their politics for your entertainment?" "Now wait just a minute," Joy started. "No, you wait a minute," Jason interrupted, his calm now visibly eroding. For the first time, anger flickered across his face. "You want to talk about responsibility? Let's talk about the responsibility that comes with sitting behind that desk for 25 years, treating people like punching bags for your personal political agenda." The studio went completely still. Even the low hum of the air conditioning seemed to grow louder. A camera zoomed in on Jason's face, capturing every restrained flash of emotion as he continued. "You talk about courage, Joy," he said, voice low but firm. "About standing up for what's right. But tell me, what's courageous about ambushing people who can't fight back without being painted as the villain?" "I'm not attacking you," Joy protested, though her voice had lost its earlier confidence. "No?" Jason raised his eyebrows. "Calling me a coward? Suggesting I'm hiding behind fake neutrality? Implying I'm complicit in the downfall of democracy? That's not an attack? That's just friendly conversation?" Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Jason didn't give her the chance. "Here's what I think is really going on, Joy," he said, leaning forward now, eyes locked on hers. "You're so used to guests either agreeing with you or staying silent that you've forgotten what a real conversation sounds like. You don't want dialogue. You want validation." "That's ridiculous," Joy snapped, but there was a defensive edge to her tone now. "Is it?" Jason countered. "Because from where I'm sitting, the moment I suggested that maybe not everyone needs to turn their beliefs into a performance, you decided I was the enemy." Whoopi's eyes darted to the production crew, making subtle hand signals. She was clearly trying to find a way to end the chaos, but no one could look away. The segment had gone completely off the rails, yet it was impossible to cut to commercial. The tension was electric, the drama raw. No one in that studio would forget what happened next. The tension in the studio was thick enough to cut. "I never said you were the enemy," Joy replied, her trademark spark flickering but fading fast. "You didn't have to say it," Jason said, his voice steady but edged with hurt. "You implied it. With every question, every accusation, every dismissive laugh." He paused, the silence pressing down like a weight. "And you know what the sad part is, Joy? I actually came here excited. I was proud of this project, something that took years to make. But instead of sharing that with your audience, I'm sitting here defending my character because you turned this into a political purity test." The camera caught a close-up of Joy's face. The confidence that had carried her through countless interviews was gone, replaced by an uneasy flush that crept up her neck. "Jason," she said finally, forcing a thin smile, "I think maybe you're overreacting." Jason leaned forward. "Overreacting?" His tone rose for the first time. Joy, you've spent the last 10 minutes calling me a spineless sellout, implying I'm complicit in everything wrong with this country, and I'm overreacting by pointing out how out of line that is? Sarah Haynes, clearly uncomfortable, tried to intervene. Maybe we should just take a step back. No, Jason cut in, calm but firm. I appreciate that, Sarah, but this matters. Because this, right here, is exactly the problem with political discourse today. If you don't loudly announce which team you're on, people like Joy assume you're on the wrong one. He turned back toward Joy. His voice dropped, but the intensity behind it filled the room. You want to talk about political responsibility, Joy? Fine. The most responsible thing any of us can do, especially with a platform, is treat each other with basic human decency, even when we disagree. But apparently that's too radical a concept for daytime television. Joy opened her mouth, but nothing came out. The other hosts were watching her now, waiting. Jason's voice softened, but his words cut deeper for it. You know what's really ironic? You've spent this entire interview lecturing me about courage and taking stands. But the second someone actually stands up to you, the moment someone pushes back, you freeze. You don't know what to do with yourself. The camera pulled wide, revealing the whole table. Jason, leaning forward now, was composed but resolute. Joy sat back, visibly shaken, her earlier bravado gone. Jason continued almost quietly. You said silence is complicity. And you're right. Sometimes it is, which is why I'm not going to stay silent about this. Joy blinked, uncertain. About what exactly? This, Jason said, gesturing between them. This idea that it's okay to ambush someone on live television, attack their integrity, and then act shocked when they object. That's what's broken about how we talk to each other. Whoopi tried gently to step in. Jason, maybe we can... But Jason shook his head. No, Whoopi. With all due respect, this conversation needs to happen. Because what Joy just did is exactly what's poisoning every discussion in this country. He turned back to Joy. You want to know why I don't lecture people about politics? It's not because I'm afraid. It's not because I don't care. It's because I've seen what happens when people start thinking their political opinions give them permission to treat others like garbage. I never treated you like garbage, Joy said, but her voice barely carried. Really? Jason asked quietly. If I'd come in here and agreed with every single one of your views, would you have called me a coward? Joy hesitated. That's not the same thing, isn't it? Jason pressed. Because from where I'm sitting, the only way to earn your respect is to mirror your opinions back to you. And if that's not treating someone like garbage, I don't know what is. The audience was frozen. Even the camera operators had stopped moving. Jason drew a slow breath. You know what the saddest part is, Joy? I actually respect you. I think you care about important things. But somewhere along the way, you started believing that anyone who doesn't echo your exact beliefs is the enemy. And when that happens, when conversation becomes a test of loyalty instead of understanding, he shook his head. We all lose. The silence that followed was absolute.